The silver ship appeared above Earth like a jewel in the darkness. Inside, Yura pressed her long fingers against the viewing window and stared at the blue planet below. Her skin shifted through nervous colors, pale pink to worried gray. She had read all the reports about humans. Every single one called them dangerous. They eat flesh, her assistant had told her before the journey. They fight each other for sport. They destroyed their own planet before learning to fix it. Yura believed every word. Her people, the Valentines, were peaceful. They ate only plants grown in harmony with nature. They resolved conflicts through meditation and discussion. Violence was something from their ancient past buried and forgotten. But humans were different. Humans were beasts who somehow built starships. The docking procedure began. Yura straightened her diplomatic robes and checked her translation device one final time. She would spend 1 month studying these creatures. Then she would return to the Galactic Council with her recommendation. She already knew what that recommendation would be. Keep humans away from civilized species. The airlock opened with a hiss. Yura stepped into the human space station, her guard high on close behind. The first thing that hit her was the smell. Not unpleasant, but strong. Humans smelled like salt and warmth and something alive that made her nervous. A woman approached, smiling wide. Too wide. Yura had read that showing teeth was a threat display among predators. Welcome. I'm Hana, the xenobiologist assigned to your visit. The human woman extended her hand. Yura stared at it. 5 fingers, each one strong enough to grip and tear. She touched it briefly with her own hand, the gesture feeling dangerous. I'm Yura, diplomatic assessor for the Valentine High Command. Wonderful. We're so excited to have you here. Come, we've prepared a welcome dinner. Dinner. Yura's stomach twisted. She had heard about human meals. The dining hall was large and bright. Too bright for Yura's sensitive eyes, but she said nothing. Several humans sat around a long table, and they all turned to look at her when she entered. Their eyes tracked her movement. Predator eyes. One human stood up. He was tall, with dark hair and a scar running down his left cheek. His body was thick with muscle, built for fighting. This, Yura realized, was the one called Daewon, her assigned handler. Ambassador Yura, he said, his voice deep. I'm Daewon. I'll be showing you around during your stay. He didn't smile like Hana had. His face was serious, almost cold. Somehow that was worse. At least with Hana, Yura could see what she was thinking. This man was unreadable. Please sit. Hana gestured to a chair. Yura sat carefully. Hyun remained standing behind her, his hand never far from his weapon. The other humans noticed but said nothing. Food arrived on plates. Yura's worst fears confirmed. There was meat. Cooked flesh from some creature sitting right there on the plate. The humans picked up their utensils and began eating. They put the flesh in their mouths. They chewed with their flat teeth that somehow still managed to tear meat apart. Yura ate only the vegetables on her plate. Her hands shook slightly. Not hungry? Daewon asked, watching her. I don't consume animal products, Yura said quietly. Oh, I'm so sorry, Hana said quickly. We should have asked. We can prepare something else. It's fine, Yura lied. The meal continued. The humans talked among themselves, sometimes laughing. When one man laughed, the sound was loud and sharp. It echoed off the walls. Yura jumped. Hyun's hand moved to his weapon. Daewon's eyes flicked to Hyun, then to Yura. Something wrong? The noise, Yura said carefully. Jinwoo's laugh? Yeah, he's loud. Daewon almost smiled. Almost. He doesn't mean anything by it. Doesn't mean anything by it. That's what worried Yura. These humans didn't even realize how threatening they were. The violence was so natural to them that they couldn't see it. After dinner, Hana gave Yura a tour of the station. They passed by a large windowed room where 2 humans were fighting. Actually fighting. They wore protective gear and circled each other on a mat, throwing punches and kicks. Combat training, Hana explained. All our security personnel maintain their skills. You train to hurt each other, Yura said. We train to protect each other, Hana corrected gently. There's a difference. Yura didn't see the difference. Fighting was fighting. Violence was violence. That night, in her assigned quarters, Yura began her report. She described everything she had seen. The teeth-baring smiles. The flesh-eating. The casual violence they called training. The loud, aggressive sounds they called laughter. Her conclusion was clear. Humans were barely civilized predators. They wore the clothes of a spacefaring species, but underneath they were beasts. Beautiful perhaps in the way a hunting cat is beautiful, but beasts nonetheless. She recommended Class 7 danger status. She recommended strict quarantine protocols. She recommended that no human should be allowed to travel freely among the peaceful species of the galaxy. The next morning, Day-Wan came to collect her for another tour. He stood in her doorway, his large frame blocking most of the light from the corridor. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," Yura said, though she wasn't. She would never be ready to spend time around these creatures. They walked through the station in silence. Other humans passed them, each one nodding or saying hello to Day-Wan. He responded with brief nods. A man of few words. That at least Yura appreciated. She didn't want to hear more of their aggressive language. "You don't like us," Day-Wan said suddenly. Yura stopped walking. "I'm here to observe, not to judge. You're already judging." He turned to face her. "I can see it in your eyes. You think we're monsters?" "I think you're dangerous," Yura said honestly. "Your species has a violent history. You still practice violence. You eat other creatures. You display aggression casually. These are facts, not judgments." Day-Wan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something Yura didn't expect. "You're right. We are dangerous. But you're only seeing half of what we are." "Then show me the other half," Yura challenged. Day-Wan nodded slowly. "All right, I will. But you have to actually look. Not just see what you expect to see." Yura wanted to argue, but something in his voice stopped her. It wasn't aggressive or threatening. It was almost sad, as if he was tired of being seen as a monster. "I will observe fairly," Yura said. "That's all I ask." They continued walking, and Yura wondered if perhaps there was more to these humans than teeth and violence. But she doubted it. Beasts were beasts, no matter how well they spoke. The transport ship cut through space toward Jupiter's moon. Yura sat in the passenger area, watching stars streak past the window. Day-Wan sat across from her, reading something on a datapad. He hadn't spoken much since they left the station 3 hours ago. Hyun stood near the door, always watching. "Always ready. Europa Station is a joint operation," Day-Wan finally said, not looking up from his pad. "Humans work alongside 4 other species there. Research station. You'll see how we interact with others." "I'm sure it will be very enlightening," Yura said, her tone flat. Day-Wan looked at her then. His dark eyes were tired. "You've already made up your mind about us. I observe facts. Facts without context are just prejudice." The words stung because they were true. But Yura pushed the feeling away. She was a scientist. She dealt in observable reality, not feelings. Europa Station appeared ahead, a cluster of white modules built into the ice moon surface. The ship docked smoothly. As they exited, Yura noticed the temperature controls immediately adjusted for her comfort. Human technology adapting to alien needs. A man waited for them in the docking bay. He was shorter than Day-Wan, with a friendly face and laughing eyes. "Day-Wan, good to see you, brother." The man clapped Day-Wan on the shoulder, and Day-Wan actually smiled. A real smile, not the polite ones Yura had seen before. "Jinwoo. This is Ambassador Yura." Jinwoo turned his smile to her. "Welcome to Europa. We're honored to have you." Another human showing teeth. But something was different about this one. His whole body seemed to radiate warmth and welcome. It confused Yura. Jinwoo led them through the station. They passed by laboratories where humans worked next to gray-skinned Kalesh scientists and tall, thin Marathi engineers. Everyone seemed focused on their work. There was no conflict, no violence, just cooperation. "We're working on ice core analysis," Jinwoo explained. "Trying to find microbial life in the subsurface ocean. It's tedious work, but fascinating." They stopped at a viewing window. Below, in a large chamber, 2 humans were fighting again. The same circling, striking, grappling Yura had seen on the station. "Your species is obsessed with violence," Yura said before she could stop herself. Jinwoo laughed. That same loud, sharp sound. But this time Yura noticed something. Day-Wan laughed too. A quieter sound, but genuine. "That's not violence, Ambassador," Jinwoo said. "That's dancing. It looks like combat. It is combat. But it's also trust." Jinwoo pointed at the 2 fighters. "See how they pull their strikes? They could hurt each other easily, but they don't. They're building skill and building friendship. We push each other to be better by hitting each other." Sometimes the best way to trust someone is to know they could hurt you but choose not to, Daewon said quietly. Yura didn't understand. She wrote it in her notes. Humans justify violence as bonding behavior. Concerning. That evening, an alarm blared through the station. The lights turned red. Yura's heart raced. What's happening? Hyun demanded, his weapon drawn. Daewon was already moving toward the door. Lab accident. Everyone to emergency stations. We should return to our quarters, Hyun said, but Daewon was gone, running down the corridor. Jinwoo ran after him. Without thinking, Yura followed. They reached a laboratory where smoke poured from the doorway. Through the haze, Yura could see someone trapped inside. A young human in a cadet uniform, pinned under fallen equipment. Unsol, Jinwoo shouted. Daewon didn't hesitate. He ran straight into the smoke. The temperature inside must have been extreme. The cadet was screaming. Yura could see burns on her exposed skin. The supports are failing, someone yelled. The whole section could collapse. Get back. Hyun grabbed Yura's arm, pulling her away, but Yura watched. Through the smoke, she saw Daewon reach the cadet. The equipment pinning her was massive. One person couldn't lift it. It was impossible. Daewon lifted it anyway, his face twisted with effort, his muscles strained. Something in his shoulder made a popping sound that Yura could hear even from the hallway, but he lifted the equipment just enough for Jinwoo to pull the cadet free. They ran from the lab just as part of the ceiling collapsed behind them. Medical teams arrived within minutes. They took Unsol on a stretcher. Her injuries looked severe. Daewon's shoulder hung at a wrong angle. Jinwoo was coughing from smoke inhalation. Why did you do that? Yura asked Daewon as a medic worked on his shoulder. She's just one person. You could have died. Daewon looked at her like she had asked why water was wet. She's one of us. But the risk doesn't matter. You don't leave people behind. The medic, an older woman named Jiwon, nodded. That's the first thing we teach everyone. No one gets left behind. Not on our watch. Yura watched as they carried Daewon away to properly treat his shoulder. She stood in the corridor, her mind working through what she had seen. A predator would not risk itself for a weaker member of the pack. A predator would save itself. But Daewon had run toward danger, not away from it. He had damaged his own body to save another. This did not fit her understanding of humans. Later that night, Yura visited Unsol in the medical bay. The young cadet was bandaged but awake. She smiled when she saw Yura, though it clearly hurt to move her face. Ambassador, I'm sorry you had to see that. Why do you apologize? You were injured. I made a mistake. Mixed the wrong compounds. Stupid rookie error. Everyone makes mistakes, Yura said softly. Do you know Daewon hurt his shoulder saving you? Unsol's eyes filled with water. Tears, Yura remembered. Humans leaked salt water when emotional. He did? Is he okay? He will heal. Why are you crying? Because he didn't have to do that. But he did anyway. That's what humans do. We take care of each other. Yura left the medical bay with her mind full of questions. She returned to her quarters and opened her report. She read what she had written. Humans are dangerous predators. She added a new line. But they also protect their own, even at great personal cost. Pack loyalty is extremely strong. It wasn't much, but it was a crack in her certainty. The next morning, Daewon appeared with his arm in a sling. He looked tired but determined. Ready for more touring? He asked. Yura stared at him. You should be resting. I've had worse. Besides, we have a schedule. You're insane. Probably. He almost smiled. But I promised to show you who we really are. I keep my promises. As they walked through the station, Yura noticed something. Every person they passed asked Daewon about his shoulder. Every single one. They showed concern. They offered help. Some touched his good shoulder gently, a gesture of comfort. These violent predators cared about each other. They genuinely cared. Yura's understanding of humans was beginning to shift like ice cracking under pressure. She didn't like it. It was easier when they were simple beasts, but nothing about humans was simple. Thank you, she said quietly as they walked. For what? For saving that girl yesterday. It wasn't brave. Daewon shrugged with his good shoulder. It was human. That answer told Yura more than he probably realized. To humans, bravery wasn't special. It was expected. It was normal. It was who they were. She would need to revise her report again. The transport back to Earth took 2 days. Yura spent most of the journey thinking. Her report to the Council was due in 3 weeks. She had planned to recommend complete quarantine of humanity, but now her notes were full of contradictions. Humans were violent, but they were also protective. They were predators. But they showed compassion. They were dangerous. But they used that danger to help others. It made no sense. Yura hated things that made no sense. "We're approaching Earth," Daewon said, pulling her from her thoughts. His shoulder was healing well. Human bodies recovered faster than Valentine ones. Another unsettling fact. Where are we going? Seoul, there's a festival. Cultural celebration. I thought you should see it. More violence disguised as culture? The words came out harsher than Yura intended. Daewon didn't rise to the bait. See for yourself. They landed in a city that took Yura's breath away. Tall buildings reached toward the sky, but between them were parks and trees and flowing water. The city was alive with green despite all the construction. Humans had learned to build alongside nature, not just on top of it. The streets were crowded with people preparing for the festival. Colored lanterns hung from every surface. The smell of cooking food filled the air. Not just meat, Yura noticed. Many stalls sold vegetables and rice and sweet things. This way, Daewon led her through the crowd. People stared at her alien appearance, but no one seemed hostile. Mostly they looked curious. Children pointed, and their parents gently corrected them, teaching politeness. They arrived at a small house tucked between larger buildings. Daewon knocked, and an elderly woman opened the door. Her face lit up when she saw him. "Daewon, you didn't tell me you were coming." She hugged him tightly, and he hugged back with his good arm, his face soft with affection. "Surprise visit, grandmother. This is Ambassador Yura." The old woman turned to Yura and bowed slightly. "Welcome to my home. I am Bora, please come in." The house was small but filled with color. Paintings covered every wall. Beautiful flowing images of landscapes and people and abstract concepts that made Yura's artistic sense sing. "You made these?" Yura asked, unable to hide her amazement. "Over many years," Bora said with a smile. "Art is my life's work." They sat on cushions while Bora brought tea. Real tea, carefully prepared and served in delicate cups. The ritual of it reminded Yura of home, of civilized culture. "Grandmother is one of the most respected artists in the city," Daewon said with clear pride. Bora waved this away. "He exaggerates. But I do love what I do. Ambassador, would you like to see my latest work?" She led Yura to a back room that served as a studio. On an easel stood a massive painting still in progress. It showed humans throughout history. Some parts depicted war and struggle, but other parts showed cooperation, building, creation, love. "I call it the journey," Bora explained. "It shows where we came from and where we're going. We were not always good. We made terrible mistakes, but we learned, we grew. We're still growing." Yura stared at the painting. The honesty of it struck her deeply. Bora wasn't hiding human violence. She was showing it alongside human beauty. Both were true. Both were real. "It's remarkable," Yura whispered. "Thank you. I hope it shows that we are complicated. Not simple. Not easy to judge." After leaving Bora's house, Daewon took Yura to the festival. The celebration was in full swing. On a central stage, humans danced to live music. The music was complex, layered with instruments Yura didn't recognize. It created patterns of sound that were mathematical and emotional at the same time. A young woman approached them smiling. "Daewon! I didn't know you'd be here." "Minseo. This is Ambassador Yura." Minseo bowed to Yura. "I'm honored. Are you enjoying the festival?" "The music is beautiful," Yura admitted. "Thank you. I'm performing in an hour, traditional songs with modern instruments. It's my way of honoring the past while embracing the future." As Minseo left to prepare, Yura turned to Daewon. "She seems kind. She is." "Minseo volunteers at hospitals singing for patients. She says music heals. Does it? Sometimes. Not always. But it helps. It connects us to something bigger than ourselves." They watched the dancing. Bodies moved in sync, flowing like water. There was strength in the movements, yes. Humans were naturally powerful. But there was also grace, control, beauty. "In your report," Daewon said quietly, "you wrote that we're violent." Yura froze. "How do you know what's in my report?" "I don't, but I know what we look like to outsiders. We scare you. We're loud and physical, and we solve problems with action. I understand that. Then why show me all this?" The art, the music, the culture? Because we're not one thing. We're not just warriors or just artists. We're both. We're everything. That's what makes us human. A small voice interrupted them. Excuse me? Yura looked down. A human child, perhaps 6 years old, stood holding a paper lantern. Are you an alien? The child asked with innocent curiosity. I am, Yura said carefully. You're pretty. Do you want to light a lantern with me? It's for good luck. The child's parent rushed over, apologizing. I'm so sorry, Ambassador. She's very friendly. But Yura knelt down to the child's level. I would be honored to light a lantern with you. What's your name? I'm Jeha. This is my first festival. I'm 4. I thought you were older. You're very mature. Jeha beamed with pride. Together they lit the paper lantern and watched it float up into the night sky, joining hundreds of others. The sight was magical. Tiny lights rising like stars, each one carrying someone's hope or wish or prayer. What did you wish for? Jeha asked. Understanding, Yura said softly. I wished for understanding. As the night continued, Yura watched humans celebrate. They ate together. They laughed together. They danced and sang and played. Families held hands. Friends embraced. Strangers shared food and stories. There was no violence here, only joy. When Minseo performed, her voice carried across the crowd like wind through trees. She sang in Korean, and Yura's translator provided the words. The song spoke of Han, a uniquely human concept of collective grief and perseverance, of suffering that becomes strength, of pain that becomes beauty. Tears rolled down Yura's face. She didn't even realize she was crying until Daewon gently offered her a cloth. Are you all right? He asked. I don't know. I don't have words. That's the point of art, it reaches past words. When the festival ended, they walked back through quiet streets. Yura's mind was full of images and sounds and feelings. She had come to Earth expecting to confirm her fears. Instead, she found complexity, depth, contradiction. Your grandmother's painting, Yura said. She showed the violence and the beauty together. Not hiding either one. That's honesty. We can't pretend we're perfect. We have darkness in us, but we also have light. Both are true. My people eliminated our darkness. We removed all violence from our culture. Did you, or did you just hide it? The question unsettled Yura. The Valentines prided themselves on being peaceful, but was that peace real? Or had they simply suppressed their nature rather than acknowledging it? Humans acknowledged their darkness. They didn't hide from it. They faced it, controlled it, shaped it into something useful. Their warriors protected. Their strength served others. Their violence became discipline. That night, Yura opened her report again. She deleted most of what she had written. Then she started over with a single question. What if we've been wrong about what makes a species civilized? She didn't have an answer yet, but for the first time, she wanted to find one. The diplomatic transport was supposed to be safe. It carried ambassadors and scientists from 12 different worlds traveling through well-protected space. Yura sat in the observation lounge with Daewon, watching stars drift past. 2 weeks had passed since the festival. Yura's report was almost complete. She still didn't know what recommendation to make. Her mind and her training said one thing. Her heart said another. You're thinking too loud, Daewon said without looking up from his datapad. I'm thinking quietly. Not for someone who can read body language. You're tense, worried. The council expects my report in 5 days. They expect me to recommend quarantine. Will you? I don't know anymore. You've complicated everything. Daewon finally looked at her. Good, we're complicated. Any simple answer about us would be wrong. Before Yura could respond, the ship shuddered. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed throughout the cabin. What's happening? Yura's skin shifted to frightened gray. Daewon was already moving to the window. His expression went hard. Pirates. Krill raiders by the look of their ships. But this is protected space. They wouldn't dare. They just did. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. An explosion echoed through the hull. Passengers began screaming. Hyun appeared at Yura's side, weapon drawn. We need to get you to an escape pod, Hyun said. But Daewon shook his head. Too late. They're already boarding. We need to get everyone to the central chamber. It's the most defensible location. I take orders from the ambassador, not from a human, Hyun spat. Then both of you take orders from common sense, Daewon shot back. We have maybe 3 minutes before they breach the hull. Another explosion. Closer this time. The decision was made for them. Everyone. This way. Daewon's voice cut through the panic. Years of military training showed in how he took command. Stay together. Move quickly but don't run. We're going to the central chamber. People listened. Even Hyun, after a moment's hesitation, helped guide passengers. Daewon moved through the crowd, helping an elderly Kalesh woman carrying a young Marathi child. His injured shoulder didn't slow him down. They reached the central chamber just as the hull breach alarm sounded. The Krill were inside. Yura had read about the Krill. They were raiders who preyed on weaker ships. The Galactic Council tolerated them because of complicated political reasons. No one wanted to start a war over a few stolen cargo ships. But this wasn't cargo. This was people. Through the chamber's viewing ports, Yura saw them. The Krill were tall with armored skin and too many limbs. They carried weapons that crackled with energy. There were at least 15 of them. Lock the doors, someone whispered. Won't hold them, Daewon said. He was already organizing people. Anyone with military training with me. Everyone else, get to the back. Stay quiet. 3 other humans stepped forward. A Kalesh security officer joined them. That was all. 5 people to defend 40. This is hopeless, Hyun muttered. Then make yourself useful or get out of the way, Daewon said coldly. The door exploded inward. Krill poured through, weapons raised. Their leader, covered in more armor than the others, stepped forward. All of you on the ground, now. Its translation device made the words sharp and angry. Most people dropped immediately, but Daewon remained standing, placing himself between the Krill and the passengers. This is a diplomatic vessel. You're violating 12 different treaties. The Krill leader laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Treaties are for the weak. We take what we want, and right now we want hostages, rich ones. Someone will pay well for an ambassador or 2. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, fixed on Yura. A Valentine. Perfect. Your people have deep pockets. Take me, Daewon said. Leave the others. Why would we do that? You're just human, worthless. I'm military trained, valuable for information. More valuable than a diplomat. The Krill leader considered this. Interesting, but I think we'll take both. It moved toward Yura. Daewon stepped in front of her. I said, take me. Leave her. Move aside, beast, or I'll cut you down. Then you'll have to cut me down. Time seemed to slow. Yura watched as the Krill raised its weapon. She saw Daewon's muscles tense, ready to fight even though it was suicide. She saw the other humans step forward to join him, all willing to die to protect strangers, and she understood. This was what humans did. They stood between danger and the innocent, even when it was hopeless, even when it meant death. They stood. Wait. Yura stepped around Daewon. I'll go with you. Willingly, but you leave everyone else unharmed. That's the deal. No. Daewon grabbed her arm. Don't do this. Yura looked at him. Really looked at him. This violent, dangerous human who had spent weeks showing her kindness, who had been patient with her prejudice, who was ready to die for her. You taught me something, she said softly. You taught me that the strongest people are the ones who protect others. Let me be strong now. Ambassador, it's decided. The Krill leader nodded. Smart choice, come. As they led Yura away, she saw Daewon's face. He looked devastated, angry, but also proud. She didn't understand that last emotion. The Krill took Yura to their ship and locked her in a small room. Hours passed. She could hear them arguing about ransoms and which council to contact first. They didn't know she could understand their language through her translator. Then she heard something else. A faint tapping on the hull. Code. Military code that she'd seen Daewon use with other soldiers. He had followed them. That insane human had somehow followed a pirate ship. The attack came from 3 directions at once. The human defense fleet arrived, but they didn't just blow the pirate ship apart. They boarded it room by room, careful not to harm the hostages, and leading them was Daewon. Yura's door burst open. Krill ran past, panicking. Then Daewon appeared, breathing hard, holding a weapon. Come on. We're leaving. How did you? Tell you later. Move, they ran through the ship. Other humans were freeing hostages. A man in a captain's uniform directed the operation with practiced efficiency. All hostages accounted for, Captain Kyung-ho. Someone reported. Good. Get them out. Subdue the pirates. Non-lethal force where possible. Non-lethal. Even in combat, even against enemies, the humans tried not to kill. They made it back to the diplomatic transport. Medical teams were already treating the frightened passengers. A woman doctor named Jiwon was working on the injured, treating 3 krill pirates alongside the passengers. You're helping them? Yura asked, stunned. The ones who attacked us? They're injured, Jiwon said simply. I help injured people. Doesn't matter who they are. Yura sat down heavily. She was shaking. Daewon sat beside her, and for a moment they just breathed. You came for me, Yura finally said. Of course I did. I'm not your species. I'm not even your friend. I've spent weeks judging you, calling you beasts. Why would you risk your life for me? Daewon looked at her with those steady dark eyes. Because that's what humans do. We protect people. All people. Not just our own. You were in danger, so we came. It's that simple. It's not simple at all. It's insane. Maybe, but it's who we are. Yura thought about what she had seen. The krill took hostages for profit. They cared only about themselves. But the humans? They risked everything to save aliens. They treated wounded enemies. They stood between danger and the innocent every single time. She had called them beasts. But real beasts didn't act like this. Beasts didn't sacrifice. They didn't protect those weaker than themselves. They didn't show mercy to enemies. Only humans did these things. Later, as the transport continued its journey, Yura sat alone in her room. She pulled up her report one final time. Everything she had written seemed wrong now. Incomplete. Unfair. She deleted it all. Then she started writing the truth. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors. Daewon lay on a bed, bandages wrapped around his ribs where a krill weapon had grazed him. Not serious, the doctor said. He'd be fine in a few days. Yura stood in the doorway, uncertain. She had never visited someone in medical before. Her people didn't have this custom. But something pulled her here. You can come in, Daewon said without opening his eyes. I can hear you thinking from here. Yura stepped inside and sat in the chair beside his bed. You should be resting. I am resting. This is me resting. You nearly died today. But I didn't. He opened his eyes and looked at her. Neither did you. That's what matters. Yura's hands twisted together in her lap. You gave yourself to them. You offered yourself in exchange for everyone else. Why? We've been over this. No, I want to understand. Really understand? What makes a person do that? Daewon was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat up slowly, wincing at the movement. When I was 10, there was a flood. A bad one. My family lived near a river, and during the storm season, the water rose too fast. We lost everything. I'm sorry. My parents, my little sister, they were all trapped when our house collapsed. I was outside, small enough to slip through the water. I should have run, found help, but I was just a kid. I didn't know what to do. He paused, his eyes distant with memory. Then these people came, strangers. They had their own families to save, their own homes flooding. But they stopped. They pulled me out of the water. Then they went into my house. It was dangerous. The whole structure was coming down. But they went in anyway. Did they save your family? My sister. Only my sister. My parents were already gone. But these strangers, they risked their lives for people they'd never met. One of them died in the collapse. A man named Taehyun. He had 3 kids of his own. Yura felt her heart's ache. That's when I understood. Daewon continued. We're not beasts because we can fight. We're human because we choose when not to fight. Because we risk ourselves for others. Because we see someone in danger and we can't just walk away. That's the burden and the gift of being human. But how do you carry that? How do you live knowing you might have to sacrifice everything? By knowing it matters. By knowing that the person I save might save someone else someday. It's not about being fearless. I'm scared every time, but I do it anyway. Yura looked at this human warrior, bandaged and tired, and saw something she had missed before. Strength wasn't about not being afraid. Strength was being afraid and acting anyway. I've been wrong about your species, she said quietly. You've been cautious. That's not the same as wrong. No, I was wrong. I saw your violence, but not your purpose. I saw your strength, but not your restraint. I saw beasts where there were only people trying their best. We're not perfect, Yura. We make mistakes. We have darkness in us. Some humans are cruel. Some are selfish. We're not some ideal species. No. But you're also not the monsters I thought you were. A soft knock interrupted them. Hyun stood in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. Ambassador, I need to speak with you. Yura stood, nodding to Daewon. Rest, doctor's orders. Yes, ma'am, he said with a small smile. In the corridor, Hyun paced. His normally calm demeanor was cracked. I've sent my report to the High Command. Your report? About today. About the raid, about you. Yura's skin went cold gray. What did you say? That you're compromised. That you've become too close to the humans. That your judgment is affected. He finally met her eyes. I'm sorry, Ambassador. But it's the truth. The truth. The truth is that humans saved us all today. The truth is that you were willing to sacrifice yourself for them. That's not diplomatic objectivity. That's emotion. That's dangerous, or maybe that's growth. Maybe that's learning. The High Command will recall you. They'll send someone else to finish the evaluation. Someone not compromised. Yura felt anger rise in her, hot and unfamiliar. And what will you tell them? That humans are violent? Yes, that they're dangerous? Yes, but will you tell them that humans use that violence to protect? That they use that danger to save lives? Will you tell them the whole truth? I told them what they need to know. You told them what they expect to hear. That's not the same thing. Hyun's expression hardened. You've changed, Ambassador. You're not the person who arrived here 4 weeks ago. You're right. I'm not. I've learned something. I've grown. And I refuse to apologize for that. She walked away before Hyun could respond. Her hands shook. Her skin couldn't settle on one color. Everything was falling apart. She found herself back at Daewon's door. He was sitting up now, eating something from a tray. That was quick, he said. Hyun reported me to the High Command. He says I'm compromised. Daewon stopped eating. Are you? I don't know, maybe. I came here to judge your species. Instead, I've been changed by you. Is that compromise or is that honesty? What do you think? Yura sat down again, exhausted. I think I was sent here with my mind already made up. I think my people wanted me to confirm their fears so they could justify keeping you away from the galaxy. But I can't do that anymore. I can't lie about what I've seen. So what will you do? I'll finish my report. The real one. The honest one. And I'll present it to the council even if it costs me my position. That's brave. I learned from the best, she said, managing a small smile. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Yura asked, Do you ever regret it? Being the person who runs toward danger instead of away from it? Every time, Daewon admitted. But I'd regret not doing it more. We all have to choose what we can live with. I can live with the scars and the fear. I couldn't live with leaving people behind. Your people are extraordinary. We're just human. That's all we've ever been. But Yura was beginning to understand that just human was more than enough. It was perhaps more than any other species could claim. Later that night, alone in her quarters, Yura worked on her report. The words came easier now. She wrote about human violence, yes, but she also wrote about human compassion. Their art and music and culture. Their willingness to sacrifice for others. Their capacity for growth and change. She wrote about a warrior with a gentle heart. About an old artist with wise eyes. About a doctor who healed enemies. About a child who shared her lantern with a stranger. She wrote the truth, all of it. Complicated and contradictory and real. When she finished, she read it over. This report would probably end her career. The Valentine High Command didn't want complexity. They wanted simple answers, safe answers, but Yura couldn't give them that. Not anymore. She hit send and watched the report upload. Somewhere light years away, her superiors would read it. They would judge her. They would decide her fate. But she had done the right thing. Daewon had taught her that sometimes doing the right thing meant risking everything. And that was the most human lesson of all. The Galactic Council chambers were massive. Curved walls reached up toward a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. Representatives from 47 species sat in a great circle, each in their designated place. At the center stood a platform where those being judged would speak. Yura stood on that platform now, her skin pale with nervousness. She had arrived at the station 3 days ago. They had kept her in isolation, allowing her to speak to no one. Standard procedure, they said, but it felt like punishment. Daewon sat in the observation gallery above along with other humans. They weren't allowed to speak. Earth had no council vote yet. They could only watch as their fate was decided. High Justiciar Kelm called the session to order. He was a tall, thin being from a species called the Vex. His people had been council members for thousands of years. We are here to determine the fate of the species known as humans. Ambassador Yura has completed her evaluation. Before we hear her report, we will review the evidence. A holographic display appeared showing images from Earth. Yura watched with growing dread as they showed only the worst moments: human wars, environmental destruction, violence in the streets, combat sports, weapons testing. This is what humans are, Kelm's voice echoed through the chamber. A violent species barely in control of their own nature. They fight each other over resources, territory, beliefs. They have nearly destroyed their own planet multiple times. They consume other living creatures for sustenance. They train their young in combat. They celebrate aggression. Murmurs spread through the council. Yura saw representatives nodding. They had already decided? This was just theater. However, Kelm continued, we are fair. We sent an evaluator to observe them directly. Ambassador Yura will now present her findings. Yura stepped forward. Her hands shook. She had practiced this speech 100 times, but now all the words seemed to flee. Honored Council, she began. I was sent to Earth with a mission to determine if humans are safe to join galactic society. I was told to be objective, to observe without bias, to report the facts. She paused, gathering courage. I failed. Shocked whispers filled the chamber. Kelm's expression didn't change, but his eyes gleamed with satisfaction. I failed, Yura continued, because I went to Earth already believing I knew what I would find. I believed humans were beasts. I believed they were dangerous. I believed they should be kept away from civilized species. I was wrong. Your report states they are violent, Kelm interrupted. Are you retracting that? No, humans are violent. They are also compassionate. They are strong and gentle. They are dangerous and protective. They are all of these things at once. That's what I failed to understand. She activated her own display, showing different images, humans helping each other during disasters, hospitals treating anyone who needed help, scientists working alongside aliens, parents teaching their children kindness, Day One standing between the krill and the hostages. Yes, humans fight, but they fight to protect. Yes, they have weapons, but they use them to defend the weak. Yes, they are strong, but they use that strength to lift others up. Pretty words, Kelm said coldly. But words don't change facts. Humans have killed billions of their own kind throughout history. And we have killed none? Yura shot back. The Vex had a civil war 3,000 years ago. The Kalesh exterminated 2 other species before joining the Council. The Marathi nearly destroyed their own planet with pollution before they learned better. Every species here has darkness in their past. Why are humans different? Because they haven't overcome their darkness, Kelm argued. They still fight, still kill, still destroy. They're trying. Isn't that worth something? A new voice spoke up. Counselor Tisha, an older being with kind eyes. Ambassador Yura, you mentioned in your report that a human saved your life. Can you explain? Yura told them about the pirate raid, about Day One offering himself, about the human fleet rescuing everyone, even treating the wounded pirates. They could have destroyed the pirate ship, she said. It would have been easier, safer. But they didn't. They risked their own lives to avoid casualties. Even enemy casualties. Does that sound like mindless beasts to you? It sounds like one incident, Kelm countered. One human acting unusually. Then let me tell you about the others. The human who ran into fire to save a cadet. The grandmother who spent her life creating art that teaches peace. The doctor who treats everyone regardless of species. The child who shared her lantern with a stranger. The musician who sings in hospitals. Are they all unusual? Or is this who humans really are? The chamber was silent now. Representatives were listening. Really listening? I came to Earth afraid, Yura said softly. I saw monsters where there were only people. But I learned something. The most dangerous thing about humans isn't their strength or their violence. It's their capacity for sacrifice. They will die for each other. For strangers. For aliens they just met. That's not beast behavior. That's something higher. Something beautiful. This council has rules, Kelm said firmly. We cannot allow dangerous species free access to the galaxy. The risk is too great. Then what about the krill? A voice called from the observation gallery. Everyone turned. Day One was standing, though he wasn't supposed to speak. The krill attacked a diplomatic vessel. He continued. They took hostages. They've done it dozens of times, but they're tolerated because it's politically convenient. How is that just? Silence, Kelm commanded. You have no voice here, human. Then give them a voice, Tasha said quietly. Let us hear what they have to say. This is irregular. This entire situation is irregular. We've never had a species like humans before. Perhaps we should listen. A vote was called. It passed by a narrow margin. Daewon was allowed to speak. He walked down to the central platform, standing beside Yura. His presence gave her strength. I don't know much about politics, Daewon began. I'm a soldier. I know about fighting and protecting and doing what's right even when it's hard. That's what humans do. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We have darkness in us. But we're trying. Every day we try to be better. Why should we believe you'll succeed? Kelm asked. Because we have to. Because we know what failure looks like. We've seen it. We've lived it. We've lost billions to war and disease and our own stupidity. But we learned. We grew. We're still growing. Isn't that what matters? Not what we were, but what we're becoming. Another council member spoke up. But how can we trust you? Your capacity for violence is undeniable. You can't trust us based on weakness, Daewon said. Because we're not weak. But you can trust us based on choice. Every day, every human chooses how to use their strength. Most choose to help. To protect, to build. Judge us on that. The debate went on for hours. Some council members agreed with Kelm. Others sided with Tisha. The humans had their defenders and their accusers. Finally, High Justiciar Kelm called for a vote. All those in favor of permanent quarantine of the human species. Yura held her breath. 7 hands rose. 7 votes for quarantine. All those against. 4 hands rose. Yura's heart sank. It was over. Earth would be cut off from the galaxy. Everything she had worked for, everything Daewon had shown her, it didn't matter. Wait. Tisha stood. There is another option. Probationary membership. Give them 10 years to prove themselves. Let them earn their place. That's never been done, Kelm protested. Then let this be the first time. Let us show the same mercy we want them to show. Let us give them the chance we were all given once. Another vote was called. This time the numbers were different. 8 votes for probationary membership. 6 against. It passed. Yura nearly collapsed with relief. Daewon caught her arm, steadying her. We did it, she whispered. You did it, he corrected. You told the truth even when it was hard. That took real courage. Kelm stood, his expression cold. Humanity has 10 years. 1 major incident, 1 act of aggression, and this decision will be reversed. Do you understand? We understand, Daewon said firmly. As they left the chamber, Yura realized something. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Humans would have to prove themselves every day for the next 10 years. It would be difficult. Some would fail. Some would make mistakes, but she believed they could do it, because that's what humans did. They faced impossible odds and found a way. They took burdens no one else would carry and made them look light. Daewon had called it the gift and burden of being human. Now Yura understood. The burden was having to prove their worth every day. The gift was being capable of doing exactly that. 6 months had passed since the Council's decision. Earth had changed in that time. So had Yura. She stood in the courtyard of the new Interspecies Cultural Center in Seoul, watching students from a dozen different worlds learn together. A human child and a Kalesh youth worked on a science project side by side. A Valentine instructor taught music theory to mixed species classes. The future was happening right here, one friendship at a time. Deep thoughts again? Daewon approached, carrying 2 cups of tea. Yura accepted one with a smile. Just remembering where we started. I thought you were a beast. Now you're my closest friend. That's quite a journey. You weren't wrong to be cautious. We can be beasts when we need to be, but you choose not to be. That's the difference. They sat on a bench together watching the students. Daewon had retired from active military service to teach tactical cooperation at the center. Yura had taken a position as chief cultural liaison, helping bridge the gap between human and alien understanding. It wasn't easy work. There were incidents. A human trader had gotten into a fight with a Marathi merchant last month. Some council members had called for sanctions immediately, but cooler heads prevailed. The Marathi merchant had started the fight, and the human had shown remarkable restraint in ending it without serious injury. One incident at a time, humans were proving themselves. I got a message from Bora, Daewon said. She finished her painting. The journey. She wants to display it at the council station. That's wonderful. Will they allow it? Shah approved it personally. She said the council needs to see all of humanity, not just our worst moments. Yura smiled. Your grandmother is wise. She keeps asking when you're coming to visit again. I think she wants to paint your portrait. I would be honored. A young student approached them nervously. She was human, maybe 12 years old. Excuse me, Instructor Day-One. Ambassador Yura? Can I ask you something? Of course, Yura said gently. At school, some of the alien kids say humans are violent. They say we're only here on probation because we're dangerous. Is that true? Day-One and Yura exchanged glances. Then Day-One knelt down to the girl's level. It's true we're on probation. It's true that humans can be dangerous. But being dangerous isn't the same as being bad. A fire is dangerous, but it also keeps you warm. Strength is dangerous, but it also protects people. What matters is how you use it. But how do I make them understand that? Show them, Yura said. Be kind, be helpful. Be the friend they need. One person at a time, you change minds. That's how we got here. That's how you'll move forward. The girl nodded thoughtfully and ran back to her friends. Was that good advice? Yura asked. It's how you changed my mind about your species, Day-One said. You could have stayed distant and cold. Instead, you tried to understand us. You took the risk of caring. That changed everything. I was so afraid when I first came here. Fear isn't weakness. Acting despite fear is strength. You taught me that. They finished their tea in comfortable silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that reminded Yura of Bora's paintings. Beautiful and complex and real. Day-One's communication device beeped. He checked it and frowned. New assignment just came through. What kind of assignment? Remember how we talked about other species being discovered? Another death world was found. Planet called Karis 4. The inhabitants are being evaluated for first contact. The council wants to send a team. Yura felt her heart speed up. Who's on the team? Me, you, Hana, a few others. They want humans involved this time. They want your perspective too. When do we leave? 3 days. Yura stood looking out at the students again. 6 months ago, she would have dreaded this assignment. Now she felt excited. Nervous, yes, but also hopeful. What do you know about the Karis people? She asked. Not much. They're territorial, aggressive by nature, strong fighters. The preliminary reports call them dangerous. Day-One stood beside her. Sound familiar? You think they're like humans? I think they deserve the same chance we got. I think they deserve someone who won't judge them, just on their capacity for violence. The council is sending us because they trust us, or because they think if anyone can understand dangerous species, it's the dangerous species and the diplomat who learned to see past her fear. Yura laughed. When you put it that way, we're either the perfect choice or the worst choice. Probably both. Over the next 3 days, they prepared for the mission. Yura studied everything available about Karis 4 and its people. The reports were discouraging. The Karis had territorial disputes among themselves. They had weapons and warriors. They had a concept of honor that involved combat. It sounded exactly like early human reports. On the morning of departure, Yura visited Bora one last time. The old woman's house was the same as before, full of art and warmth. You're going to help another species, Bora said, serving tea. That's beautiful work. I'm nervous. What if I make mistakes? You will make mistakes. That's part of learning, but you'll also make connections. You'll build bridges. That's what matters. Bora touched Yura's hand gently. You've changed my grandson. He smiles more now. Laughs more. You gave him hope that humans can be accepted for who we are. That's a precious gift. He gave me something too. He showed me that strength and kindness aren't opposites. They're partners. Then you're both richer for knowing each other. Take that with you to Karis 4. Show them what you learned here. The transport ship was waiting at the orbital station. The team assembled in the briefing room. Hana was there, along with 2 other humans and 3 council observers. Everyone looked nervous. All right, Day-One began. We all know why we're here. The Karis people are being judged, just like humans were judged. Our job is to observe fairly and report honestly. But remember, we're not there to change them. We're there to understand them. What if they're hostile? One of the council observers asked. Then we protect ourselves. But we don't assume hostility. We've all read the reports. Yes, they fight. Yes, they're territorial. But so are humans. So are half the species in the council. Fighting doesn't make them evil. Yura added, we approach with respect. We listen, we observe. We give them the same chance I gave humanity. the chance to show us who they really are. The ship began its journey. It would take 2 weeks to reach Karis 4. During that time, the team studied and planned and prepared. On the 10th day, Yura found Daewon in the observation deck. Staring at the stars, thinking about Earth, she asked. Thinking about how much has changed. 6 months ago, we were fighting just to be accepted. Now we're helping others be accepted. It's strange. It's growth. That's what you told the council, remember? You're not what you were. You're what you're becoming. I'm scared, Daewon admitted quietly. What if we fail? What if we can't help them? Then we try again. We keep trying. That's what humans do, isn't it? You face impossible things and refuse to give up. He smiled. When did you become the one giving me courage? I learned from the best. They arrived at Karis 4 on schedule. The planet was beautiful, with purple oceans and green continents. Initial scans showed a civilization at roughly early space age development. They had satellites and basic computers, but no faster than light travel yet. Beginning first contact protocols, Hana announced, sending greeting message in their primary language. They waited. Minutes passed like hours. Then a response came through. The Karis language was harsh and guttural, but the translation was clear. Who are you? Why have you come? Direct, suspicious, exactly like humans would have been. Daewon took the communication station. We are explorers from other worlds. We come in peace. We wish to learn about you. Explorers or conquerors? Explorers. We don't seek to rule you. We seek to know you. Another long pause. Then, come, but know that if you mean us harm, we will fight. We would expect nothing less, Daewon replied. We respect strength. As they prepared to land, Yura felt a strange sense of completion. She had come to Earth afraid and left it changed. Now she was bringing that change to another world. She was giving the Karis people what Daewon had given her, a chance to be seen truly. The landing craft descended toward Karis 4. Through the viewport, Yura could see cities and forests and mountains, a whole world waiting to be understood. Daewon stood beside her, and together they looked at their future. Ready? He asked. Ready, she answered. Below them, the Karis people were probably watching with the same suspicion Yura had felt when she first saw humans. They were probably afraid. They were probably preparing for the worst. But Yura would show them the same thing Daewon had shown her. That being strong doesn't mean being cruel. That being different doesn't mean being less. That every species deserves the chance to prove who they really are. The landing craft touched down on alien soil. The doors opened, and together the warrior and the diplomat stepped out to begin again, because that's what they did now. They built bridges. They made connections. They turned fear into understanding, one species at a time. And somewhere above them, in the council chambers light years away, a statue was being built. A human and a Valentine shaking hands with words carved into the base. They thought we were beasts. We proved we were human, and together we learned that was more than enough. The future was vast and unknown and full of challenges.